My pranams to revered Sri Kantanandaji Maharaj and greetings to all of you. We started doing a series of talks on self-improvement. The first one of them was on listening, which we have completed. And I mentioned that self-improvement comes when we practice, when we implement. Just by listening, it's not good enough. We have to find out about ourselves. And that is our topic today. That is self-improvement through self-assessment. Self-assessment, examining ourselves, analyzing ourselves, finding out more about ourselves. Now, why we are doing this is because youth is the time when our energy levels are at the peak. But these energy levels very often are not oriented properly. Without our realizing it, we find that the energy is not oriented properly. And therefore, we struggle. We are led astray. We waste our time. And by the time we realize that we are no longer young and we cannot do what we were capable of doing earlier, it becomes a little too late. So before it becomes late, Swami Sri Kantanandaji wants to harness the youth power. He wants to use that power which is inherent. Like Vivekananda said, that perfection is already within all of you. But that perfection is lost because nobody realizes that perfection. Self-assessment means to find, to go in quest of that perfection, to find it, to capture it, and to make use of it permanently, not momentarily. You do an exam well and you say, oh, perfection. I did very well. Now that is enough. Now you have to continue consistency. Today we have a term called sustainable development. So our development should be sustainable. Sustainable means what? Throughout our life, from today till the last breath of our life. This is what is important. Therefore, let us try to talk about self-assessment or self-analysis. Now, what should we do? We as human beings are made out of our attitudes and our behavior, what we can also call as our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So if we are able to monitor every thought, every word, and every action, if we are able to find out whether the thought is right or wrong, the word is right or wrong, properly or improperly said, the behavior is acceptable or unacceptable, then what do we realize? We realize what mistakes we are making. Then when we realize our own mistakes, like a doctor gives medicine after diagnosing. The doctor finds out what is wrong with you. You say, I have a headache, or I have this problem or that problem. The doctor says, okay, let us try to diagnose. Go for a blood test, go for this test or that test. And then by looking at those reports, he says, okay, this is the problem. That is why you need to take these and these medicines. So we are trying to self-improvement is that medicine. How are we going to do it? We are going to do it by diagnosing. And what is that diagnosis? That diagnosis is self-assessment. So do self-assessment every day, every minute, every hour. Then you will improve. Then you will move towards development. Then you will become better. So if youth wants the youthful energy to be beneficial to themselves, to the whole world, because on you, on your shoulders depends the world, its survival, its ability to go towards a better life, and so on. Today, we have so many crises in the world. The solution of the crises lies with our youth. The solution comes from youth who have self-improvement propensity. They want to do self-improvement. By improving all of us, all the youngsters, then the whole world becomes a better place. We don't have all this ecological crisis. We don't have all this crisis of conflicts. We don't have all the difficulties which are going on at this present. You know, from all difficulties, good things come, like the pandemic. It's only after the pandemic that we are doing so much online. So the online mode has become a lifeline. We can't call it online anymore. We can call it a lifeline. How did it come? It came because of the pandemic. The pandemic is negative, but the outcome might be positive. So we have to constantly analyze ourselves, understand ourselves, in order to know what are our abilities. Unless you do self-analysis, how will you know your abilities? Somebody asks you to do something. The first response which comes from the average youngster is, oh no, I don't know how to do it. I've never done it. I can't do it. Some people who have great initiative, some youngsters, they jump forward, they come forward and they say, I have never done it, but I would like to try. This is finding your ability, taking that plunge, taking that risk. If it is worth doing, then it is worth doing well. This should be our motto as youngsters. And therefore, we have to find out our abilities and improve our abilities. That is what self-analysis gives us. We also know our drawbacks. When you're doing self-analysis, you realize, oh, I used to think I'm such and such a person. But now I realize, after I spent a little time with myself, that I'm not like that. I was deceiving myself. These are my problems, my drawbacks. Then what you do? You try to control them. If there are any negatives, control them. Otherwise, direct them into a positive channel. Any negative is a future positive. It becomes positive in the future. So we don't lose out anything. Now, evaluation, which we have to do for self-analysis, measurement, like they do in the examination, that measurement has to be done in such a way that it is regular. Preferably, if you do it every day, that is wonderful, not once a month. We eat every day 4 times. So we don't forget, we sleep every day. We don't say, okay, only on Sundays we will sleep and not the other days. Self-analysis every day, self-assessment every day. And that too, sometimes more than once a day, many times a day. A negative thought comes to the mind immediately. Don't wait till the evening. Immediately you say, oh, this is not a good thought. A wonderful idea comes to your mind. You get, excited. You say, oh, this is a wonderful idea I got. Only an assessment will tell you about it. Otherwise, the idea just passes through your mind. So we need to do this, not weekly, monthly, but regularly, maybe once a day or more than once a day. Now, let us choose the best thoughts and the best words and the best actions. Our attitudes and behavior might be good, might be indifferent, might be bad. We learn from indifferent and bad, but we try to foster the good. We try to strengthen. We try to make the good more powerful. So we find the best in everything. Now, when we are evaluating, when we are assessing or examining, let us be objective. Objective means let us observe. We have observation power. So we look at ourselves as the subject, and then we stand outside that subject and look at ourselves. We say, okay, this is a person, this is not me. Because as soon as we say this is me, we become very kind, we become very imbalanced and we become subjective. So that's not good assessment. Good assessment is to be objective. This objectivity is significant for all analysis. Now, assessment can be mental, like I told you, attitudes or thoughts. It can also be social. When you assess your behavior, how do you behave with people? How do you behave with friends, strangers, family? A great writer, Bernard Shaw, used to say that if you really want to know a person, go and find out how that person behaves when he or she is at home. Outside, we wear a mask, we behave very well. But our real behavior comes when we are not worried about what others think. So this is not correct. We have to realize that on all conditions, all situations, there should be the same excellence, the same best attitude, best behavior. Then we have emotional issues. Analyzing emotions is very difficult. We have to analyze it. Then spiritual also, very important. Many of us say, oh, I don't believe. But that's not really nice, because today there is a whole movement going on, spiritual but not religious. People have given religion a very bad name. Religion is not bad. It is only the practitioners of religion, the negative values of religion, which are bad. Religion as such is excellent. And spirituality is that purity, that essence, which is beyond the material. It has nothing to do with supernatural things. That is called spiritualism. Black magic, spiritual, occult, that is spiritualism, but that is not spirituality. So we have to identify our spiritual energies, our spiritual abilities, and assess them also. Then, of course, the physical assessment we always do. We measure our weight, height, etc. All that assessment we do. But physical also means non-verbal. One day we will spend on non-verbal. Then you will analyze that the way you stand, the way you sit, the way you move your hands, your head, your eyes, all this communicates your excellence. So if you want to be excellent, you have to talk about all these things. Unless we do this, we cannot benefit. Positives and negatives, as I'm mentioning again and again, every negative is an opportunity, and every positive strengthens us. So we have to look for them. If you have done something good, praise yourself, pat your back by saying, oh, today I did something very good. But equally be strict with yourself when you did something bad. Be full of applause for goodness in yourself, but be, chiding or criticizing when you have made a mistake. By recognizing, by doing what is right or what is wrong to the entire world, we don't do it to ourselves. By behaving, by thinking positively about others, about ideas, about people, about, concepts, we become better and better. So this is a process of self-improvement. We often talk about the SWOT analysis in self-improvement. SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. You know it. Many versions of this, different varieties of this are available now. All of you are tech savvy, so you know much more than I do. But I wanted to give you some examples of this from the life of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sharada Devi, and Swami Vivekananda. I'm going to use the SWOT to all of them. Please understand that all the 4 parameters of SWOT are learning experiences, are improving experiences. None of them is a negative. Weakness and threat is not a negative. It is a negative in which the positive core is hidden. It is like the buried, gold, or it is like the pearl at the bottom of the ocean. We can't see it, but it is there. The precious metal is available. The precious stone is available. So we talk about SWOT analysis. First, Sri Ramakrishna. Strength. From childhood, young Gadadhar, that was his name before he became Sri Ramakrishna, young Gadadhar was very good at making gods and goddesses out of clay. He could do clay modeling very well. And because he was spiritually inclined, he would make the images of gods and goddesses. Once it so happened that after he came to Dakshineshwar Kali temple as a priest, the idol of Radha Govind, which was, the next temple to the Kali temple, that the leg got broken. Now, strength, look at it. When we do something more and more and more, our strength multiplies. That is called experience. So he said, don't throw away the idol. All the other priests said, throw it away. We cannot worship a broken idol. He said, no, don't throw it. That idol is for us, our own God. Would you throw away your son-in-law if he broke the leg? No, you won't throw. So don't throw it. This is what he told the owner of the temple, Rani Rashmani. So I will mend. His excellence, his strength of making clay models now came helpful. Today, if you go to Dakshineshwar Kali temple, you will be able to see the mended image also. You can't make out that it has been mended. He did it so well. So strength multiplies by using it. Go on trying to use it again and again. Make yourself stronger. Vivekananda said, strength is life, weakness is death. Reject weakness. Now we are looking at weakness, which becomes strength. Sri Ramakrishna had very frail health. His health was terrible. When somebody asked him, you are suffering so much, you have so much pain in your throat, because in the end he had cancer. How do you feel? Don't you feel pain? You're always smiling. How can you smile like this? He says, I take away my mental energy from concentrating on the pain. I take it away from the body, he said. So you can imagine the pain is in the mind, it is not in the body. Can you imagine how by self-analysis we are able to make our weakness into strength? What is the analysis here? That if I think about the pain increases. If I don't think about the pain disappears. Imagine the strength of mind, which by analysis comes to make a weakness into a strength. Then opportunities. Sri Ramakrishna used to always make the best of opportunities. One day he calls his nephew and says, there is one lady standing near the Ganges. Call her, she is my guru. Bhairavi Brahmani, a lady guru he accepted. Then Totapuri came. He was willing to learn. He was a guru himself. He was a realized soul himself. He says, no, I want to learn. He went to all the sects. So every opportunity he made use of. I have already told you in listening that he practiced Christianity, he practiced Islam. He was always accepting, ideas from spiritual leaders everywhere. Sikh disciples used to come. They would come all the way from North India, talk to him, and he would say, yes, I'm very, very respectful to the Sikh gurus. Every sect of Hinduism he would respect. So opportunity. And then, of course, the threat is, once he went to his village and he said that I would like to eat only dal with what is called in Bengali as panch porun, a special kind of masala. It was not available. They were not willing to buy it. Then he felt very upset. He said, why? I came all the way from Dakshineshwar temple where I can get wonderful food because it is a very rich temple. And now you are not even giving me dal properly. Suddenly he did self-analysis. He realized, what am I doing? For food, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my spiritual power. For simple dal, that is terrible. So the threat came as the dal and his interest in eating, and it became a great opportunity for his own mental elevation. So you can imagine at every point we find self-analysis is making us better. Even a realized person like Sri Ramakrishna is going for self-analysis. When we come to Sharada Ma, we have strength. What was her strength? In her own words, she says, make the world your own. She had a great power to make everybody her own. She never used to treat people like strangers. She never used to keep them apart. She used to make special pan, special food, delicious recipes to feed them. She says, they are strangers, but if I care for them, they will become my own. She had great love for everybody, making everybody our own. That is her strength. One weakness we find, one day when she was ill for some time, she stopped getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because she would get up at 3 o'clock, meditate, do all her work outside, and then come into the Nahabat, which was a single room where she was staying in Dakshineshwar temple. Now, once she realized that she was not well, she was getting up late. Then it became a habit. She started getting up late again and again. Suddenly she did analysis and she realized, oh, I have become terrible. I'm not even looking at the clock or getting up on time. I'm just sleeping. This is a weakness. Suddenly she corrected herself and she started getting up again at the earliest, that is 3 o'clock in the morning. We find this a very important example because we also find it very difficult to get up early. We must practice that, strength of mind comes only when we assess and realize our weakness. Then opportunity came to Holy Mother. After the Master Sri Ramakrishna was no more, she became the spiritual leader, but she did not become initially. First, she said, when Sri Ramakrishna told her, you have to do a lot of work, she said, no, how can I do? I can't do anything. He said, don't worry, you have to do it. When she started, she became a great spiritual leader. She indiscriminately helped people, whoever needed spiritual help. She was willing to give physical help also. She welcomed the Western disciples. That was the way in which she became the Guru. She did not treat them as mlechas. In those days, foreigners were considered as mlecha, not allowed. She welcomed these disciples of Swami Vivekananda. She ate with them. She spoke to them, although she did not know English, they did not know any language. Sister Nivedita, the disciple of Swami Vivekananda, learned Bengali to speak to her. So you can imagine, making your own and then being the right kind of guru. That was the opportunity. The threat was there, difficulties. After the passing of Sri Ramakrishna, she stayed in Kamarpukur, which was the birthplace of Sri Ramakrishna, for some time. No money was there. She did not have a single rupee with her. A little grain would be given to her. Some leaves would grow in the garden. She did not have money to buy salt also. Can you imagine? A little rice, a little green, no salt. This was the life of the mother for a very long time. She never complained. This threat became to her a powerful learning experience because later in life she often taught by saying, hunger is terrible, which our whole mind gets disturbed by it. Therefore, do not, try to do anything great with that. She would say, eat well to the young brahmacharis. She would ensure that they ate well. Said, don't give up food because by this food, the transformation comes. Once Sri Ramakrishna told her, don't give so many chapatis to the boys, they can't meditate. She says, don't talk about their food. I will look after their meditation. So such a threat, personal difficulty made her realize it as an opportunity. We come to Swami Vivekananda. What was his greatest strength? The strength of Swami Vivekananda was that he never believed anything without testing. He went around asking everybody, have you seen God? Everybody said, the great spiritual leaders of his time said, no, we have not seen God. Don't worry, you're too young. The only person who answered him properly was Sri Ramakrishna. He said, yes, I have seen. Do you want to see? I will show God to you also. Now, young Narendranath, educated in a university, he started believing, yes, here is truth. Here is a man who has courage. So, this strength Swami Vivekananda had, he built it up by his self analysis. Then we have his weakness. Swamiji himself tells us that his weakness was his short temper. Very often he would lose his temper. Once he saw that some boys were doing some decoration for a festival in Belur Math, which is where the center was organized. The whole Ramakrishna movement started from that point, Belur Math. Therefore, he said, if I go now, I will find that the boys are making mistakes in arranging. I might scold them. So I won't go now. See, self-analysis. I have a short temper. So if they do something badly, I will scold them. Let them finish. After making all the mistakes, they will get it well. They would have decorated the place very well. Then I will go and praise them. So control anger. What did you do? Don't do impulsively, but go at the end and do it. See how much self-analysis goes into a changing pattern of behavior and attitude in a person as great as Swami Vivekananda. Then we have opportunity. How did Vivekananda get the greatest opportunity? For a nation which was enslaved, a young man goes and gives an identity to that country. Nobody knew about anything about India. They only knew that India was a colony, that it was good in spices and gold. People could just steal from India, but they did not know about the real India. Vivekananda went and established the Indian identity in the West. Not only America, but England also. He went to the ruler's country and he told them, see, this is India. Not the India as you see now, but the India of the glorious days. So that was a great opportunity. How did he use it? He used it by his self-analysis. When people asked him, are you going to go to Chicago? He said, I'm not decided. I don't know. I have to decide. So you can imagine internally, he is assessing, he is analyzing, he's taking help from everywhere, including Holy Mother Sharda Devi, including Alasinga Perumal. Everybody is helping him. But finally, his own self-analysis, opportunity. And what was the threat? Once he went there and he became very popular, people said, here is a very bad charactered youngster. Swamiji was very handsome to look at. So they said, his character is very bad. Look at him surrounded by women. Swamiji used to treat these women as his daughters, as his sisters, as the members of his family. Never did he realize whether they were men or women. That gender distinction was not even there in his pure mind. Can you imagine how the threat came? And that threat became an opportunity to purify himself more and more, to make people realize that gender is only physical. Vivekananda said, don't think about it. Your mind has no man, woman. Your spirit has no man, woman. Who can say this? A person who has experienced that threat and done some self-analysis. So now we come to some strategies. How to become, better, how to improve ourselves by doing self-assessment, self-analysis for self-improvement. The first strategy is spend some time with yourself. This is the most difficult today. Either we have our cell phone, it takes 24 hours. Even when we are sleeping, message is coming. As soon as the phone rings, we wake up from sleep and check up the message. Oh, some notification has come. No time for ourselves. Go away from everything. 5 minutes per day, 2 minutes per day. Sit with yourself. You and yourself, nobody in the middle. In the pandemic, this happened, that you were not left with much. People became totally disheartened, depressed. People just wanted to end their lives. They said, we cannot live like this, so unnatural. Imagine if you had self-assessment tool with you, you would have enjoyed the pandemic lockdown, because the lockdown gave you time to spend with yourself. And then know your habits, know your interests. What interests you? What does not interest you? You will slowly come to know what are the good points about you, what are the faults about you. These will come to you only when you realize that there is some good in everybody, there is some bad in everybody. Our job as we live, as we go towards self improvement, is to improve the good to the better and the best. And to, you know, the bad which is there, we control, we make it minuscule, we make it smallest. So accept the negatives, work to make them positives. Then self experimentation. If you've not done anything ever, don't think you can't do it for self improvement. When you are assessing yourself, assess those areas, experiment with those activities, behaviors and attitudes, thoughts and words and actions, which you have never done before. Do it and see the impact. Once you see the impact, you will have food for analysis. And then concentrate. How does self assessment help? Because it strengthens our values, it strengthens our motivation, our ability to live life properly, to make a meaningful existence, depends on self analysis. So, if we analyze ourselves, please remember that we become better by this self analysis. So, thank you to everybody. I hope all of you will start practicing. See, if I speak to you about self analysis, doesn't mean that I have finished analyzing myself. Even now, every day, every minute, I need to analyze myself. So, all of us are in the same boat, young and old. For old, it is a difficult process because energy levels are less. For youth, it is a greater process because you have at your fingertips the energy and all the resources. So embark on this exciting journey of self-improvement through self. Thank you and all the best. Pranams, Maharaj.